Vibe coding. If you've spent any time on the internet in the past year and change, you will have heard the term vibe coding getting thrown around. And that is the idea that you can go to a chat agent like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, and you can write in what you want to build, and it will actually write software code for you, whether that's for an actual website, for a backend program, or for most commonly, an app. And this is something I've been tinkering with quite a bit, just the ability to build an app, to go through something like Gemini or Claude or Replete or V0, or something like Loveable, which is what I used most recently, and we'll see in just a second. Most of these are fairly standard. So if you've used one of these chat agents, you've used more or less the same thing as all of them, which is good and bad. The standardization is good because it means that once you learn one, you'll have a pretty good grasp of how to use any of them, which is kind of cool. And you can actually code a piece, export that code, drop it into another one, do some other code there, and move it around between the agents. The downside of that standardization is that you more or less get the same thing. So if you hit walls with one of them, you're probably going to hit walls with all of them for a couple of different ways. And I'll talk about some of the ones that I hit here as well. Now, there are a couple more advanced tools popping up that offer slightly different things. My personal favorite being something called Flutterflow, which actually lets you physically move around pieces of the UI and customize exactly what it's going to be. It is miles more complicated than something like Lovable, for better or for worse, right? So it does some things really well, gives you a lot of that customization. But for what I'm trying to do, I hit the same walls and they weren't helpful there because the things that I'm having trouble with aren't visible UI. They're not things you see. The things that you see, the things that you can actually design through these chat prompts are pretty straightforward. And it's true that anyone can build those. So if you see anybody can build a startup MVP or a minimum viable product to show off as a prototype, to talk to investors, talk to businesses, start getting customers. And anyone can do that to a point. It really depends on what you're building. Because, for example, the big project that I'm working on is something that has to have, from launch, a very powerful database, a clean, secure database that is fast and efficient, but that also works well at scale. So I need something that can handle a very high volume of queries very quickly, because that's critical to the long-term success of this program that I want to build. And now that's the thing where I know enough to say all that, and I've learned that, but I have no idea how to do that. And even something as complex as Flutterflow, where you get a lot of details and hands-on tools to play with that, didn't get me over that hump. So I've been seeing all this advice. Anyone can build an MVP, anyone can build an app right now. And I kept hitting a wall, keep trying and banging against this thing. So what I have done is I dialed that back quite a bit. I scaled it back to the point where I wanted to create something. I looked to a much simpler tool that I wanted, something that I wanted to have, and I went ahead and went about creating it. That's what we're going to look at now. So this is Loveable. This is the UI where you've got that chat interface here on the left, where I would ask requests like, let's see, for example. Uh, yeah, and so this has a basic database they can put in here, but I needed a developer, an experienced developer, to look at the database to make sure that it's actually working. So I said I made something simpler. So I made something that I have called the shortlist, and this is my opening prompt. And what this is just a place like something you can have on your phone or have on a web page where you can just store contacts of individual people. So individual people, say on LinkedIn, if I want a LinkedIn content creator, if I want a video advertiser, if I want a like a consultant or a hiring manager, any of these sort of professions you could look for, say you have someone in mind you've interacted with who you really like. LinkedIn is spectacularly bad at actually saving and keeping track of that person, especially as your network gets bigger and you start interacting with more and more people. So I really wanted a just little way where I could keep a short list of people that I wanted to be able to refer back to and make sure that I had their contact saved. So I had the name, I had what they do, and if I was talking to someone, I could just be like, here, this is this person. I didn't find anything out there that did that, or I didn't look all that hard, but I was like, I bet I can make that. And it's much more basic than what I was making in the first place because this is purely public information. So there is a login thing so I can save my list, but there's nothing confidential about this. There's nothing private about this. I'm not putting any information in here that's not public. All it is an accessible way for me to use my computer and phone to share the same list of contacts. So I went ahead and did the prompt, it created the app, and then you can run through this and see some of the things that I did. And now this is one of the things that is one of the first walls you'll hit. And this is where you can feel a little bit guilty is not the right word, but with everybody out there saying that anyone can do this and you're an idiot if you can't, if you simply hit something you can't do, you immediately feel like an idiot, which is not great. So this is where I hit this. So I was creating this. I knew I wanted a login page. I wanted to sign in. I wanted to sign up. I wanted a multiple sign in options, right? So I had the username and password. You have to do a sign up just so you can create a password in the first place. Initially, I created it with a sign in with Google option, which I believe had that here. Yeah, and immediately got an error with that because it will add the button, but it won't actually set it up. And that's the thing too, is that these have very powerful interfaces. They have very powerful tools, but this is a perfect example of something that you can't just make in a chatbot. And this is one of many small walls that I hit that compounded to where I wasn't able to create the main project I was working on and where I tried again with this one. So I dialed it back on purpose so I could kind of intentionally hit these different errors and these different walls and actually get past them and actually complete the project, which I have now done. But so the login with Google button, you'll notice, is not in the actual preview on the right because I removed it because of this. I have to actually go in and work on the whole Google side, which you can't do with the chat agent. You have to do that by hand. And while I could take the time to figure that out, I wasn't. This is a side project, and I kind of wanted to do it quickly to see how quickly it was actually possible to do this stuff. So I got to this point. I was like, all right, so in that case, please remove this cool sign in with Google. And you can see how I'm actually like talking. One of the cool things about these chatbots is that they do have a very kind of human place. And so you find yourself being a little bit conversational with them. Like, I'll have a start without that, is not functional. That doesn't serve any purpose, but it's what I would say if I was actually working with a person. I catch myself doing that a lot. So we remove that. Yeah, there we go. And this is cool too. And this again is another wall that you either do or don't hit. So you're making an app, right? When you think of an app, you think you go to the Apple Store or you go to the Google Play Store and you download something from there. But there's a whole vetting and installation and setup process that's required to actually get them on there. It requires a whole different formal account and a whole lot of extra setup. That is something I will be doing for my true MVP product. But for this, I wanted to do without that. So I went with the installed progressive web app option, which pretty much just takes your website version, wraps it up nice and tight, and puts it a little package that someone can save onto their phone, and then just use it the same way they would on the web, just on mobile too. And that meets the needs I've got here exactly. So I did that. But that again, you have to have enough of a background that you understand what that means. Even with the quick summary here, there's a lot of nuance behind a progressive web app versus a true native mobile app that you may or may not know if you're not really experienced with app development. And that's one of these cases where this whole idea that anyone can make an MVP is potentially a little bit harmful. But yeah, anyway, so we got here. So yes, and so I set it up as a progressive web app, went through here. That I don't necessarily need to talk about this too much. I want to actually look at the product that I've built so we can go ahead and see how it looks. Now, you may note that I keep talking about how I made this a quick project. I made this a fairly straightforward basic product. Um, and so it was all in the interest of expediency, but this still took the better part of this whole week because most of these free builders work on a token system, where if you're using the free version, you have a limited number of credits. And every time you make an edit based on the complexity of the edit, you use up your credits and eventually you run out of credits for the day. And because I'm still learning how to do this stuff, I'm not willing to pay for one of these tools until I fully understand how it works and could make the best use of my time using one of these. So I'm still using the freemium versions. And so I would do a couple edits, I would have to take a break, do a couple edits, have to take a break, which is helpful because it means you can step back from the project, think about what it needs and what changes. So right here, for example, I talked about the Google sign in button. I talked about the sign in, the sign up. Initially, I put in a password and then promptly forgot it, and there was no forgot password option. Oh no, there we go. And so the forgot password option, I just said, hey, can I get a forgot password option? And it added it in this very nice, very basic UI. Like I didn't specifically tell it to do this style or anything here. I didn't say the colors. All I said was a basic app, sign in screen plus a couple other screens. And then I've just told it to add or remove buttons. And to the credit of these tools, this is a really nice, basic, but very functional, approachable, modern looking UI. Looks good. Forgot password button works like a charm. Works absolutely terrifically. However, the first time that I used it, let's see, let's go back up here. And I've made some significant tweaks since. We're going back a little ways. Let's see. Da, 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 da. Visit the app in your browser and now I need to tweak that because I haven't actually installed it. I've just viewed the mobile version on my phone. So we'll go ahead and look at that. Aha, please add a reset password option. So I did that. And it did this very nicely, but then I tried it and I received an error the first time I tried to reset my password. Another one of the kind of walls you can see looking at this stuff, telling me the token was expired or invalid. And I should have had the exact error, but it was so fast I didn't fully get to see it. So this is another case where I have the technical background where I knew getting at least some of the terminology of the exact error was really important so that the program understood what exactly was going wrong. And that's another limitation where not everyone can do this. So just did that. So the reset actually works and said, oh, yeah, okay, we found the issue. And it should have found that the first pass, and it didn't. So that took a little bit of testing. So testing is important, review is important, tweaking is important for all of the things I said. I could have built this and just rolled it out with the sign in with Google option in there and without a forgot password option and just not realized it until I got it in the hand of other users. So these are some of the many pitfalls that you can hit because the forgot password is a pretty obvious piece to have on there. And I'm really glad that I hit that where I forgot my own password. So I was reminded of that. Let's see. And then let's actually take a look at the app. So it's a very straightforward app. Again, I talked about the goal here being just to make sure that you have a place to kind of store accounts. And it's not just LinkedIn because I can store people who don't have a LinkedIn account because all I did, let's sign in there, all I did was create this list so that I can add an option with just a name, an external link, location is, these are optional. So these are required, which it actually I didn't tell it which fields should be required, but it automatically kind of chose that. And you could add or remove that. I could say you have to have location is required, title has to be required, or not, but it doesn't necessarily matter. So I've got this here, and initially I didn't have the what for option. Well, excuse me. So the goal here is it's any external link. I talked specifically about LinkedIn accounts, but I also have run across a number of people professionally, websites, contacts, freelancers, whoever, who I want to make sure I can reference and reach out to directly, but who don't necessarily have a presence on LinkedIn, anything at all or anything meaningful. And I wanted to save their most meaningful contact account. So a tool like this is really helpful because it's platform agnostic. So I could use it for LinkedIn accounts, I can use it for direct websites, I can use it for a GitHub, I could do it for anything. And that's one of the really cool things about this that I wanted as a feature myself. So all it is just name, external link, location, title. This what for wasn't there, and that was important because I have a filter option. Oh, perfect. This is getting longer. So this is something I need to test to see this. And this is cool too. So I didn't tell this to make the filters dynamic. I didn't tell it to add an individual checkbox for each individual thing that I enter. So every single one of these is unique. Uh, and if I really am taking seriously making this list, I'm going to need to make these a little bit more consistent. I'm going to need to make sure that each of those applies to an actual contact. I'm going to need to tinker with stuff like if I edit someone's entry, will it remove the filter what for option that was associated with that person? I need to test that. I need to play with this, which again goes into this isn't something you can just do and just let it go. You kind of need to tinker with it and play with it and make sure it does what you need to do. Yeah, so this is pretty cool. And a couple notes here. When I first rolled this out, I had the add button, the search button, the filter, but it showed all of my initial fields. So it was name, link, location, title, all of that listed. So you could see how the list would get very dense very quickly. And I didn't have any form of edit option. So one of the many things I had to test for was I added an edit pencil. I changed this view. I told it to do just name and then just the link, the Y in a single line. So I could scroll very quickly through the list and get a very quick idea of who I was looking for and what they do. So this already is more or less exactly what I needed. And I'm really, really excited about this. This is cool. And this again is the dialed down project I did to make sure that I would have a success. So I could actually pull one of these off and be like, this is what I want. Let's build it. Let's see how it comes out. And this is how it came out. So I've got one for people, especially for LinkedIn folks. Then I've got one for businesses. And this could be businesses on LinkedIn, but actually none of these are the LinkedIn links. These are the direct website links for these. So if I'm saving a favorite online store, a favorite Etsy account, a favorite like a favorite plumber or something, this is my short list where I could use it for any of those. And I could do filter for let's see, like again, I talk about a plumber or electrician. I can save that and have that as a quick reference here. Then I've also got socials if I want to go ahead and have social accounts. And Yeah, and you'll note on this, I added the platform because each of these, again, is just pulling an external link. So it's pulling in that YouTube. Now, this is my project. I want to keep working on it, but I want to make sure I'm not wasting my time necessarily. And there's potential for this down the road. So I went ahead and asked it to add a ad space. And this ad space is definitely not where I want it and looks terrible, but I chose to do this video before I'd fixed that because I still wanted to show kind of the work in progress piece, not just the chat where you saw me kind of wrestle with individual things, but also this feature. And if you see this on the mobile view, it looks terrible. So I need to move this, but I ran out of credits for today, so I have to wait until tomorrow to fix that. And then I will actually put out a link and release this tool as it is because I'm really excited about it and it's functional now. Like again, there's no privacy issue here because all of this is public information. There's no reason not to share this out. It's something that could be useful for people immediately, and that was one of my sort of core goals behind it. And if there's the possibility to do a little bit of ad revenue, why not, right? And I wanted that in the initial rollout so that people could see there may be ads potentially in the future, and this is where they're going to be and what they're going to look like. Because I didn't want that to be a shock. I didn't want that to come out later. I wanted that to be something that was visible immediately. So that's kind of a lot of what I'm putting into the design process here. And I am very excited about this. And so I've been tinkering with videos. I've been meaning to do something like this for ages, but I needed to have a project that went from concept to actual completion more or less. So this is a functional, actual prototype of what I had in mind, and it works, and it's pretty cool. I can tinker with the colors, the customization, whatever, but I made this. So it's pretty awesome. So yes, on a very, very basic level, anyone can use one of these tools if they are patient or willing to pay for it or bang their head against it to make an actual MVP. But you also do need to temper your expectations of what it's going to be capable of, how much you're going to have to tinker with it, how much you test it to make sure it works. Um, yeah, and I'm very excited that this came out so well. So shout out to Loveable, our European-based vibe coding app. Was a really, really good experience, even with the limited credit system. Um, yeah, and I'm excited to roll this out further. So that was it. That was my just sort of stream of consciousness about vibe coding. I wanted to kind of share this, to share my personal experience, to talk about it a little bit, but also to make sure that anybody out there who's seen that feedback, anybody can do this, anybody can build an MVP, kind of had that view nuanced a little bit, right? And this, if I really were serious about making this something, if I wanted to create the social account and put it on the Apple Store and the Google Play Store and have it be a downloadable app, I can do that. And I'm actually pretty excited to do that, but that is where that ad space comes in because there has to be a way to pay for the cost of hosting it on the various stores because there is a cost for hosting those accounts. There is a cost for having it on there. And if I want to make it public, it's got to pay for itself. So Um, but yeah, tell me what you're working on. Tell me if you have any questions here. I would love to hear kind of what projects you're doing and how it's going. Because it's for all the limitations and stumbling blocks that I hit, I hope that my excitement about how this has come out has come across in the video because I'm really excited about how this came together. It's pretty cool. And again, it's a very clean, simple thing that does exactly what I needed and didn't have. So epic success, as they say. Till next time, let me know what you think. Cheers.